Welcome to the Fun Time program. I'm one of your hosts, Vivica Volt, and this is my co-host,
John Andrew Frederickson.
And today we have a very special guest in studio, even Nick Stryker.
What's going on, Nick?
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Did you know this is our first in-studio interview on the show?
I didn't know it was the first in-studio interview. I'm honored. I am touched.
For the people at home who are just listening, or even the people on YouTube who can't see the studio situation right now, it's a little nuts. We're drowning in wires. We got lights all over the place. It's gonna be fun to figure this out, to like really get this streamlined and professional, and at least the on-camera product, as far as I can tell, looks really good. So
I'm proud to be your guinea pig.
We are being COVID safe. We're sitting 6 feet apart, and we all got tested before the interview.
We're more than 6 feet apart. Nick's at least like 12 feet away from us right now.
That is technically more than 6 feet.
That's why we're all wearing headphones, so that we can hear each other through the microphones
without having to yell across the studio.
It's like being in a helicopter.
So Nick, tell us about yourself. Are you a New York native or?
Well, I'm originally from Salem.
Okay.
I moved from Salem, Massachusetts in 2010. So I am a New Yorker because I've been here for 10 years. And so...
Oh, wow. I've been here longer than you?
Yeah.
Okay.
For non-New Yorkers who don't understand that reference, basically, once you've been in New York for 10 years, you're allowed to call yourself a New Yorker. That's accurate. That's pretty much the rule. So congratulations. When was your move date?
May 20th.
Oh, man. And we didn't get to celebrate because what was going on this year?
Yeah, the COVID.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we got COVID.
I'm hoping I get to celebrate my move date, which is coming up this month. It's October 15th.
How many years?
This year will be year 12, as I came here in 2008.
Do you celebrate every year?
When I remember. I'm terrible with dates, so
yeah, same.
Sometimes it goes by and I'm like, oh shit, I as of last week I was here. How many years now?
So 10 years. That's exciting.
Yeah.
What's that been like? Has there been a progression of feeling more and more settled in this city?
So one of my favorite things about New York is that you can live many, many lives. Yes. Like you can be so many different people. And
how many different people are you?
I have been so many.
How many are you right now?
Oh, currently I'm just me. I am just me. I will always just be me. But I am. At one point, I pretended to not be me, and I had started a few businesses under an alias so that like they could not have like a face to it. I find lately that I started off in 2010. Started off doing fetish gear. I was designing fetish gear, and the company that I started was called Nick Stryker. And so my name and my face and my everything was part of the whole thing. And so like I like it got big, but I didn't want it to like be, I didn't want to be like the face of the company, but the company was literally me. Mm-hmm. So even though it went international and I was selling through places like Untitled on 8th Street, my mm-hmm. favorite stores in New York.
I might have to check this place out.
Definitely. Oh my God. Just some of this stuff. And Kevin, there's a huge lion's mane of hair. It's just ferocious. I love it. I don't know. It's, so after a while, I decided that I didn't want necessarily my name and myself like tied to whatever business I was going to start. So I actually started a naked handyman company.
Ooh.
That's quite a transition.
Yeah, well, from fashion, because I started off with fetish wear, went more into mainstream fashion by the end of it. I came up with a whole spandex collection, and I was selling through 4 different stores in New York with the spandex, and then I was hospitalized. I had some autoimmune thing happen. My legs weren't able to work, and next thing you know, I had atrophied from the waist down for a year.
Oh my God! Isn't that common in fashion that when you're running your own fashion line that you almost inevitably destroy your body?
Yeah, essentially, or something. Yeah, something's got to go.
Fashion eats you alive in one way, shape, or form.
I'm grateful for the experience. I got to work in Project Runway. There were so many different opportunities that I was given, and so I am grateful for it. That said, once my health took a turn, I realized the stress I was under, and I switched gears, and I started going into massage therapy. And
wow.
yeah, it
was
was
a very drastic turn.
fascinating as hell though too.
Was
like,
that kind of a reaction to, you know, health issues and wanting to sort of get a handle on the body and take back some control
to
over
be able to
understanding?
understand and take care of myself and others better?
Nice.
It puts me in a much better position to be a caretaker as well. It made me a whole lot more confident as a human being, actually knowing how to take care of myself.
Wow.
And a lot of the things that I learned in class were things that I wish that they would just teach people in general in like things like health class.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because like whatever, like 4 basic food groups or whatever, like it doesn't like, it's not.
Like what's one of, like, give us an example of something that you learned in class that you wish that you had learned in school.
Neurological things, like for instance, when you get like a twitch or like a muscle spasm, like have a banana, you're probably low on potassium, or like, or if you like.
Not that John knows anything about being low on potassium.
This is actually how we met. It's so funny. It was Vivica's birthday. We were all hanging out in the park, you know, socially distanced, kind of a little bit of a get together, having some drinks, and I couldn't help but get distracted by the boys playing ultimate frisbee, and I had to go join them. And I already rollerbladed 20 miles that day. I was completely depleted on any potassium or whatever else, you know, electrolytes, and I just started going all out on the ultimate frisbee game because I'm a little too competitive. And man, I got the worst Charlie horse of my life. That thing lasted me for like a month. You know, I was continuing to be stretching it out. You know what? I think this is the first day I've noticed I'm actually better.
That you're better,
you know. And Nick, man, you were there to walk me through it, because I thought I had absolutely just ripped my hamstring when I jumped and it popped. I had never experienced a Charlie horse like that in full exertion mode, and I literally thought it was torn. And you just walked me through it. You're like, no, this is what's going on. You just got to keep working on it. You got to keep stretching it, keep getting blood flow to it, and just keep working through it. But you're right. I mean, knowing how to deal with those kinds of issues, it gives you power in the situation that otherwise it can be terrifying. You know, it
would scare anybody. It would scare literally anybody, because that is your body. You only get one.
Yeah.
And so the idea that, like, for instance, the neurological tests that we did, like to find out whether or not like it was like a pinched nerve, the test to find out whether or not, like, you know, you had torn muscle tissue.
Right.
There's just all these little mini tests that you could literally learn. I think I think a health class would be helpful.
Yeah.
But you know, just learning anatomy and physiology is just so beneficial.
How often do we bump into these kinds of experiences in adulthood, though, where we're like, why don't they teach this in school? Like, they force us to go through this mandatory 12-year schooling system that currently is really only set up to push you off into college, to push you off into some white collar job, which is great for people who are pursuing that. But it's such an opportunity to teach things that you need in adulthood that they just don't teach you, like taxes, you know, government, voting.
I would absolutely rather learn taxes than square dancing.
Right. You learned square dancing?
Yeah, I learned square dancing too.
What? Square dancing.
What?
In my gym class.
You went to a Catholic school?
No, this was in public school. I mean, I did go to a Christian school growing up, and that's not where I learned square dancing. But when I went, because we weren't allowed to dance.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds a little racy for your school.
Absolutely. But no, when I went to public school, it was actually one of the like mandated gym classes that I had to take, was that I had to learn square dancing. And I was like, well, this is fucking stupid, because they like taught us all these different types of dancing, but square dancing was like a requirement. And I was like, why? I promise you, I'm never going to square dance again after this class. And I never did. I went to a square dancing bar once, and it was because I got tricked into it. And the entire time I was like, oh, wow, cool. I am one of 2 Black people in this whole bar. This is real motherfucking awkward. And you know what? I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
It was a lot of things.
That's goofy. I mean, I grew up in Massachusetts, and they did that still up there. It was part of. I mean, it was also music class. We had to learn. We learned raps in music class, but not like raps. Not like, but we're like raps. We're like Animaniacs raps, like like the capitals of like all the states and stuff. Yeah, goofy stuff. But like, I mean, that was great. That was beneficial to at least know the capitals of the states. Knowing where they are, actually, that would be nice too, because you know, by the time you graduated high school, half your class actually knew where Arkansas was.
Right.
Yeah. It's weird. It's funny because like I used to be really good at like the United States geography, and now if you like tell me to like name all the states on a map, I'm like, I can do it, but it's going to be more of a process of elimination.
Bro, that is unacceptable.
Like that one's Kentucky, so that one's Oklahoma.
We are
so
gonna do our states.
That one's definitely California.
You're playing Sudoku with your states.
As soon as you start paying attention to politics, though, in these elections, where it's like you want to know who's winning the Senate and in what states, you start relearning them again. So
it's like Ohio's either here, or here.
Like, where's Lansing again? Okay, right. It's in Michigan. It's in Michigan.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Well, I ended up actually working for the Giants. The school that I went to was Swedish Institute. One of the best schools I learned apparently in the whole state. And New York has the most stringent rules and laws for massage therapists in the whole country. So if you're the best in New York, then you're also sort of the best in the country. I didn't know this even looking into the school though. That's like, I went shopping. Like I went to them first, and then I went to all the other schools in and around New York, and ended up coming back to them. And lo and behold, their financial aid department actually helped me out a whole lot more too than any other school in the city.
Oh, wow.
So I'm so grateful I got to go to them. And then at the end of the day, like really just the experience of being with them. And then on top of it, getting the opportunity to work with actual athletes, like the Giants, like that was an opportunity.
Yeah,
and just being able to, because I mean these are like massive, like muscle tissue, whatever, blah blah. Like we worked with some athletes in school too. Anyways, you were going to put your elbow. That's called the olecranon process right there. If anybody's going to use that on your body, make sure they know what the hell that's called, because a lot of amateurs, they're just going to hurt you. But like you're dealing with like a leg that's larger than your torso, and it's just like
football players must be the most built human beings out there.
But then you look at them, they're like 8 feet tall. They're like 19, 20 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
These are kids.
Yeah, they're kids.
These are kids. And especially in pro football in general, like they're gonna get hurt. Like they're smashing into each other like trucks.
Yeah.
And so like I don't know. It's after a while. There's just all you're doing. Just you're working on like broken up kids.
Man.
Private practice was actually a whole lot more fun too, anyways, because then you got to like decide who you got to work with and when. Right. Making my own schedule was a lot more fun.
It's always really nice.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't typically stick to one specific thing for too long. I don't like to get bored. And
Jack
so
of all trades.
It's nice to be able to like decide when and where I will provide my services.
Right. As opposed to being tied into like a 9-to-5 situation where, with an organization.
There's something to be said about that. There's a certain discipline. There's loyalty. There's a certain decorum that you've learned over the years of like being in that community. I could never survive in a space like that, in a corporate environment like that, where like I had to like, in some cases, weasel my way up from the bottom, because we all know that there's always those fun little inns that people find. I just, that whole like being a hard worker and working from the bottom up, it doesn't always get you where you're going.
Right. There's so much other nonsense in that scene.
So I may as well, and the thing is, you get voted out of the, you get removed from the table so easily, so frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And
what do you mean by that?
Well, all of these companies, they're so cliquey. And like your boss, your coworkers, everybody's talking. Everybody, like in reality TV, when I was working in reality, like the departments.
You worked in reality TV as well?
Yeah.
He said it was on Project One Way.
Oh, right.
Well, I worked on a few shows. I did Runway, Dancing with the Stars, $1 Million Listing.
In what capacity?
Well, Project Runway, the last season that I worked on, I was head of craft services. Wow. But I started off in just the production crew, and And when I worked on the face, I was in the challenges department, and like while also doing some of the craft services, because I had done that previously, and they needed a hand, so you help out.
Right.
But the one thing that I noticed about like working in environments like that though is that while you're working, your work is really important, but it's really what you do after work, like who you fraternize with,
Yep.
like because after this job, exactly. I mean, you filming for maybe a month and a half, 2 months at most, especially for a reality TV show, and then filming's done. And then what do you do after that? Like, there's got to be a next job, and you line those up because, like, I guess the 10 or so people that you were hanging out at the bar with, of them, like 2 of them might have a show that they're going on to next, that they might need someone to fill a certain role. And since you've done X, Y, and Z for other shows, you can fill those gaps easily.
It's all the networking.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So you've had the full experience of work conditions and, working in sort of the corporate structure, working on your own as an independent, building your own business.
Mm-hmm.
What have you taken away from all of that, and how do you apply that to your work today?
So that whole concept of if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Right.
Like if you don't show up at the bar after work, you could be talked about.
Right.
You could be one of those people that people are like, what the hell was this guy doing? Like, why was he late? What was he doing with this? Oh, this like, and then the guy that like doesn't do literally anything with the truck, he's sitting there with your boss telling him that like he's doing all the work and everybody else is fucking off.
So you got to be there after hours advocating for yourself.
You gotta be there to not even just advocate, but just because, again, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. If you're not there to defend yourself or present yourself in the way that you want them to see you, you got to be able to chill. Like working with them, it's fine. But in some cases, especially in reality, like you're going to be on the road, you're going to be in the field, you're going to be like, say, hanging out at a hotel for like a weekend.
Right.
And like, you're going to want these people to be not only reliable, but people that you're going to want to have a beer with after.
Right.
And so like, if you can't be one of those people, they will choose somebody else. And so,
and then you get a reputation for not being likable or not being amenable. And then it gets harder to have more jobs because networking is so important.
100%.
Yeah.
And also it depends on who you network with too. If you become guilty by association so easily, if it's like.
So how do you work around that?
You make your own table.
Nice. I like that.
So
how have you made your own table?
Well, not necessarily specific to reality TV, but this year I put a literal table on my roof. When COVID broke out, I discovered that everybody was going to get a little stir crazy. Within the first 2 weeks, I mean, I had just renovated my entire apartment and finished just before this broke out.
Yeah.
So I think I got the last of the electronic equipment I purchased on that Black Friday. I had installed everything and I was just finishing up the new counter spaces and painting the walls and stuff just when they were saying that everybody's got to start staying indoors. So,
like, well,
so
at least
like,
I like my indoors.
So I have like a projector in one room. I have 2 screens in another room. Like the whole space is like laid out so that like, cause I have 5 people living in this apartment, including me. And in Hell's Kitchen, the apartments aren't enormous. They're not tiny, but they're not enormous. Where like you would walk in and if it weren't not, if you walk into this space and it weren't set up for 5 people, it would look like a dorm and it would be far too overlived. Like there are far too many people like butting heads in the space. So you have to create little moments where like even in one living room, you have 2 or 3 different moments where someone can chill here, someone can chill there, and they have their own little world, like their own little bubble.
Wow.
And so I sort of set the whole thing up. The apartment itself is laid out kind of like a spiral. So I set it up so that every time that you like take a turn, there's like a whole nother moment, a whole nother experience that you're opening yourself up to. And then, so that part was a whole lot of fun. I was a set designer. I got my BFA in scenic design. And so
that makes a lot more sense than your apartment now.
But so it's like hue light bulbs. I tell Siri to tell me I'm cute. I'm like, hey Siri, tell me I'm cute. And the lights all switch to like these like the blues and greens and pinks and stuff.
We're gonna have to do a tour of your crib.
Yeah,
just for the show.
that would be great. I just finished
cribs.
Right. Actually, a fun time program cribs would be pretty fun.
Let's do it.
But so I got this place all set up, and then I discovered, that we can't go outside anymore. So I'm like, well, we have a roof. I'm going to go see what this thing is like. And I went upstairs. You could walk out on it. There, in fact, were some planters, but it was all like dead plants and weeds and trash and all that. Like, people didn't take care of the space. Mm-hmm. And there were like bottle caps, like, gnarly side down, just like stamped into the roof. And so, I brought my tools up. I brought some wood. There was some like pieces of stuff, just like broken furniture and crap just strewn about. And I took some pieces, put them together, made, a few different pieces of furniture, some tables and some boxes. And every day that progressed, I would find trash in the streets. People would just be throwing away like dressers. So I'd pull the drawers upstairs. And so like just a bunch of dresser drawers. One day I just started carting them upstairs. I ordered, potting soil. Mm-hmm. And so, one day I'm just like bringing like 20 bags of potting soil up to the roof. And then next thing you know, everything's planted. And just one day after another, things just start to grow. I have, by the end of it, a community garden that it was technically illegal, but the landlord had no idea.
Wow. So you just did
plausible
all of this
deniability
without talking to the landlord at all.
Yeah, no, it's easier to ask forgiveness than in this situation, only just because legally he couldn't give me permission,
right.
But having seen the effects of what we were able to do this summer, now he's agreed to make it for realsies, to like give us an actual legal
permit and
like
everything. Yeah,
like he he's got in touch with a lawyer, with a contractor. He's redoing the entire roof.
Wow.
And he said by next summer we'll have a legitimate roof garden, like community garden.
So next thing you know, you've put all this work into it. You've taken the initiative. You convinced your landlord to do it. He's going to make it official, and then he's going to raise your rent.
I mean, honestly, if that's what it comes down to, the best part about it, this man reduced my rent without even asking.
For COVID.
Because of COVID.
Wow, that's amazing.
He renewed my lease early and reduced my rent considerably.
Wow.
Wow.
And I need to talk to the people here in this building about that.
I'm not kidding. If ever this guy, his name's Jonathan Stern, if ever you have a landlord that has that name, he's a good guy. I think he's a good guy.
You vouch for him.
I vouch for him.
I mean, finding a good landlord in New York though is challenging.
It's really hard in this city.
I mean, just finding a good apartment. Yeah.
But like someone that cares,
Right.
like, because so often you're actually dealing with a management company, and that's what I thought I was going to have to deal with this situation. But we are actually dealing directly with the landlord.
Wow.
And so much so that like I did all of the renovations to my apartment. I didn't have to, ask him for any of it. He actually told me, just I'll reimburse you. Just send me some receipts.
Wow.
Right?
That's really awesome.
That is a
he probably also recognizes
like
the value that you're adding, not only to his apartment, but to his building. Because if you had approached him saying, hey, I have this roof deck idea, he's probably gonna be like, yeah, no, there's no way I can invest in that. That's not gonna work out.
Like right now.
But then once you show him like, okay, well, for pretty cheap, here's what I was able to do, and look how much benefit it's had to not only our apartment, but to the entire building. And like even other people from like the building next door that like kind of shares a roof with you guys,
they come over.
Yeah. Like
nice.
they see how like, oh wow, it's a lot nicer on this side. Like, so, when they're thinking about renewing their lease, it's like, well, can I get into that building? That building has a better roof than us, kind of a thing.
If I can, I mean, not to gloat or anything, but
gloat away.
The building has never had an issue during COVID, has never had an issue filling the apartments. The second that they see the roof, they're like, all right, I'm sold. My apartment, I had to fill a 5-bedroom apartment during COVID. I had no problems. I had my choice of whoever the hell I wanted.
So are you the only person on the lease?
I was like the only person that was left from the original lease.
Got you.
And so the next round, I'm going to I put everybody else on that lease too, so that if one left, I was not responsible specifically for their amount.
So are they paying the landlord directly or are they paying you?
Everybody pays them directly.
Okay, so you don't have to deal with collecting money from people.
Exactly.
All right.
Much easier, especially with 5 people.
Yeah. I did building maintenance when I lived in Salem during undergrad, and building management rather. And so it was one of those things that like having to chase down rent is not.
It's rough.
You know, I'm not a debt collector.
Yeah,
like,
you don't
I don't
want
to break legs.
Kneecaps.
Exactly. I mean, I will. I don't want to. And
you're not here to be the bouncer of rent.
You know.
So how nice has it been to have a rooftop that you can go to during
great.
COVID?
While I started the whole thing, because of course planting plants is just a lot of like hurry up and wait,
right.
Where you plant everything at once. You got to make sure it's watered. What I did at first was I put I opened up white trash bags, snipped about like 2 sides of it, opened it up flat, and just like laid them out so it keeps the humidity and moisture inside, keeps them nice and warm if like you get a bit of a frost. So the seeds have some time to germinate. And after like a week, 2 weeks at most, pull them up and you'll get some sprouts and everybody will be looking all happy and stuff. And you just got to make sure that you keep it watered, because the second those things dry out, it's game over. But I got the first things that I planted were pumpkins.
Ooh. What?
I
planted pumpkins in New York
grew
City?
I grew actual pumpkins on my roof. I grew corn in a dresser drawer.
That's amazing.
On the roof in Hell's Kitchen.
That's the most Midwest thing I think I've fucking heard.
Do you have pictures of this?
I have. I'll
you
send
need
them
to send
you.
us pictures because I want to be showing them during this.
I grew corn. I grew a sunflower in the middle of a clump of corn. How I germinated this corn was I took a White Claw can. I just ripped off the top of it, threw dirt in it and a little fistful of like unpopped popcorn kernels, and just like threw them in there.
Get out of here!
I'm not even kidding.
Store?
Yeah, just like a bag of popcorn. You know,
I thought they were dried out or something.
They are, but all seeds are dried out.
Or processed in some way. They're literally just raw and ready to grow.
And the best part about those ones, though, my favorite was that when the corn starts to grow, there's like little like the hairs that grow are like they're like this color. They're like beautiful and silky and like shimmery and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. I keep pushing back. So, but there's what else? I got watermelons. I got 3 watermelons.
Your watermelons are kind of an unusual shape, though.
Yeah. Oh, because I was goofball. The entire thing was experimental. I had first off no idea what I was doing. I had never planted a plant and have it survive at all.
Sounds like this is a theme in your life, though.
Like just trying it out. Try it out. Just make it work. Just make it work.
That's amazing.
But it was great though. My favorite part about it was when I ordered these blue I can't remember where the hell they came from actually. I'll have to find the name of the company. But I ordered seeds, green bean seeds. And with the green beans, this company sent like flower seeds. They're just like whatever flowers. I didn't even know what the hell they were. I planted a bed of them. They attracted so many pollinators to the roof.
Oh, perfect.
I'm not even kidding. These flowers were a godsend, because without them, I would not have half as much of a return on like any of that stuff.
Which is probably why they sent them, because they were like, we noticed you didn't order any pollinators. You probably need them. We're just going to slide this right in.
Right. And so they... we had bees and hornets and wasps and everything like the whole summer, but it was actually like really nice, just like having the buzzing and stuff. Is just because it's not flies. It's like it's not New York.
It's healthy nature,
and they weren't coming towards you or anything. Like a lot of people get really scared of bees, especially hornets and wasps.
Yeah, because
they're real mean. But like if they're just pollinating some flowers, they have no reason to bother you.
Exactly. That's amazing. Hornets and wasps loved the green beans. And the bees, they're like these little fuzzy little teddy bears. Yeah. These bees, they love those flowers, and they ended up we got cucumbers because of it, the watermelons, and throughout the summer, what I really wanted was I wanted to see if you can grow pumpkins and watermelons off of a vine hanging over the edge of something, like seeing if you could like just prop up a vine on something, because I know that there are a lot of creepers and crawlers and stuff. So I got pumpkins and watermelons to creep and crawl, and then I got cucumbers to climb and morning glories to climb, and then I got some stalks like the sunflowers and the corn. And I wanted to see if I can make some like plant sculptures with them. And I got watermelon on the corn. The morning glories took over, and Yeah, the pumpkins. We just threw the pumpkins and watermelons over the edge, and because of the gravity of the situation, those watermelons came out teardrop shaped.
So they're not supposed to grow like that.
No, they're really not supposed to, I guess.
Well, at least you tried.
I mean, it's like a new watermelon shape.
I'm so happy that like I gave it a shot though, because like I would never have like seen it, or would never have believed it rather if I didn't see it.
Oh yeah, it's such an unusual thing. I've seen them. They're really fucking cool looking.
Veggies.
Talking them
veggies. The Veggie Tales, if it were.
A little less religious.
Yeah. Oh God.
Oh God, what?
No, the Veggie Tales.
Tell me about VeggieTales. I don't know.
Oh, right, because he doesn't understand most pop culture things. So VeggieTales is a little cartoon that's for kids, and they tell like little stories, but they're all about like they're all super Christian. So they're all like little like Jesus stories in some capacity.
But like I really enjoyed
there's a lot of absurdity.
Absurd. That's absurd, not absurd. I was thinking for some reason.
Absurdity.
Yes.
So did you feel like your little garden had aspects of VeggieTales in it?
Yeah. My garden was pretty absurd. I mean, there were some pretty absurd moments. Yeah, teardrop watermelons. The herb garden that like everything just exploded.
What kind of herbs?
I had rosemary, basil, so much basil. Thyme and mint.
Do you have some time on your hands?
I had so much time on my hands. I had all the time. And then I have mint. There was like 3 different kinds of mint. We had mojito mint. We had mint that kind of tasted a bit like
Did you have mojito mint and you ain't even tell me?
We had so much different mints, but like now it's all dried up there.
Were you making mojitos all summer?
We were making some mojitos.
Nice.
We were making some mojitos.
Wasn't invited to none of them.
No, but like so what it is now, we can use it all still as like tea, because at a certain point I just stopped watering everything. When like there was no more.
Don't tell me there's a sad ending.
No, there's no sadness. There's no sadness whatsoever. See, here's the deal. We hosted a birthday party for the designer of Balmain. We hosted a tea party for the writer of 2 Secret New York rooftop books.
Wow!
Like we had an experience. We had Mario Kart night several times.
Yeah, and again, where was my fucking invite?
Easy.
Rude.
Easy.
It was always like last minute plans. But you gotta come through more. We'll do it tonight. But what I do is I had the seamless backdrop from my photography days too. I used to photo assist for the Swedish photographer for Plaza magazine.
Wow.
It was that was so much fun.
Don't tell me it was like Peter Lindgren or something.
No. But it was kind of like from that stage in my life, I had like actually invested in some equipment. One of which being this massive roll of white seamless backdrop paper. And it was so beneficial for like shooting my own products when I was an actual designer.
Yeah.
And so I randomly found this big roll of paper somewhere, and I cut a big chunk and made a huge projection screen for the roof.
Nice.
And it's great. Mario Kart, it was probably the best way. I mean, in terms of community, this whole building came together over the summer.
Wow.
Like there was like in New York, you go years without even meeting your neighbors sometimes.
Yep. Dude, I've been in this studio here in this building since February. I think I've said hi to like 3 people maybe.
Yeah. Well, also the fire in the building last week.
Yes, that helped.
Brought us all together.
In a way that just hadn't happened before. It's artists, man, creatives. But I mean, it's New Yorkers in general. Like they keep their head down in the hallways. I'm like, hey, I'm here. I'm new. Like, what's going on? Nope. Nothing. I need to have a party.
No taxis.
Well,
we need a rooftop.
That's what I'm saying. You need a communal space.
Do you want to help us create a rooftop here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm all about it. We could do it with trash actually. And what I wanted to do for the winter, I'll get into that in a second. But the community itself that it created, the best part about it is, one, we could talk to each other about if there's any problems in the building that we've been experiencing. Like if somebody's like ceiling was dripping, we can talk to the person in the apartment above us to see if something was up instead of having to go through the landlord.
Right.
Like if there was ever an infestation of any sort,
right,
like we would then know, because they're not telling everybody everything.
right.
You know, like we found out that at one point there was a bed bug scare.
Oh no.
Not like, you know,
It wasn't like a whole thing.
I mean, it was taken care of.
Don't they legally have to tell everyone in the building?
But that's what I'm saying is like, not saying that these guys did it wrong. We're saying that like previously with the previous owners.
In general, this is what happens.
Yeah. And so there's one guy that lives on the first floor that's been there for 40 years.
40?
The 40.
Wow.
So the stories this guy has, like there was apparently an illegal brothel on, like there were two apartments on the first floor. Like 1A was an illegal brothel at one point.
Nice.
And like they found out because the electric company came through. They had apparently switched the meters for 2 apartments. This guy was gone for like a month or something and came back, and his bill was like astronomical. And he was like, "What is this?" And the electric company like came through to read the meter, and he's like, "Shut everything off." The meter was still spinning, and so he's like,
"What were they doing?"
They were just running a brothel. They had 5 rooms in this place. And, like the lights were on, music, like all kinds of air conditioning, like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And like,
things that would have pulled a lot of fucking power.
Like this room.
Shit like that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I could see, so it's weird because I guess they were probably doing that so they could stay under the radar.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, how did they not like
think that was going to bite them in the ass?
Right. I mean, at least like kick some money back towards this dude to keep him quiet.
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
Oh my goodness.
That, I mean, you should, that seems like just poor management on their part.
But that's the thing. You do shady shit happens to you.
That's
like,
accurate.
You know, like if you are a genuinely nice person, doesn't matter. Like, I don't want to say it doesn't matter if you're doing shady shit, but if you're a nice person, the shit that you're doing isn't shady. It's just, it's a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I don't know. I think the building itself really is so grateful for the roof. When I told them about the new like the new roof that they're going to get, they were super excited. And it's just, I don't know. I was playing with a few ideas of doing something this winter, like trying to make a makeshift like sauna or like warm room up there.
Ooh,
like,
that would be really nice.
Right?
How would you heat it?
Well, space heaters and things of that nature.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't do any open flame stuff, but even something like candles, light, like, you know, heat up a space like
pretty
quite a
decently,
bit.
Yeah.
But I would need to build a structure that wasn't going to fly away, and that's sort of like.
And that gets weighty after a while.
It's not that it's weighty so much as expensive, both time and money. And I put in my time for the summer.
Right, exactly.
And I had to water these things. I'm not kidding you. These plants, by the end of the day, I had 2 milk crates rather, with 4-gallon jugs of water. And I would have to do it 4 or 5 times a day.
Wow.
We're talking like 90-degree days. So
Jesus
the roof
Christ.
itself was about like 120 degrees because of the reflection and all that junk.
Right.
Like I was up there watering all day long and I still couldn't keep up because like by the time that I got up there the second time, they were dried out. The fact that I got watermelons at all is like
a miracle.
It's a miracle. And so one of the first things I'm going to make sure I implement when we actually design the new thing is an actual irrigation system.
Yeah, it was like automatic sprinklers or something.
Because there's no like water faucet up there. Like you'd have to go all the way from the basement. I don't know. We'd figure it out.
Yeah.
But there's just so much time invested already into it, and to like have to take it apart, I'd have to make sure that like, you know, I'd want to get paid for it this time if I'm going to do something like a steam room.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like, I wonder if you could do a steam room that could be converted into a green room, like a greenhouse.
Right.
So that like the structure doesn't have to go away. Like you could essentially just take off the panels off of the sides and have like glass underneath or something so that it could become a greenhouse. And then you could just set the panels off to the side until the winter and then make it a warm room again.
Well, what I discovered.
Tell me what it is, what it do.
Someone told me this really wonderful trick. You know that Tyvek like pink insulation foam, but like the solid like bricks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can make a structure out of those using just like foam glue and then coat it in like foam coat, like theatrical foam coat.
Oh.
A lot of that stuff is actually waterproof. And if it's not, you can actually coat that.
Yeah, like
then.
Scotch guard it.
And before you know it, then you have a very, very lightweight structure that is also semi-permanent, because it's like, you can actually build it onto the roof. You can like
glue it down,
form it around shit. Yeah, like 2x4s, just like screw it into stuff or something. And if you put like glass panes into it, or like even just like one thing, just like plastic, whatever. It's just such an easy way to build something, and it's like Legos.
Wow, yeah. That's really fucking cool. That's really fucking cool.
I'm looking forward to our sauna days this winter.
Right. I'm hoping I could do it. The thing is, if I do a sauna or a steam room on the roof, it's going to be heckin' busy up there.
Right.
And so
because everyone's gonna want to be in it. You're gonna have a sign-up sheet.
Well, the other thing that I'm gonna be a little fearful of is that like we're gonna be sitting in something.
Yes.
Like that every now and then.
Sterilizing it is gonna be a thing.
Yeah, because like there's gonna be some people that are gonna try to get away with some stuff.
Also, COVID.
What? Who would ever do
not exactly COVID safe.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Is the whole point of having the rooftop was the open air experience.
Right. Sauna is just trapping.
Literally the reverse.
The whole point of it is to keep things in.
That's such a bummer.
Yeah. So I put the kibosh on that idea for now,
right.
just to be like, hey,
keep it on the back burner.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think
next
I would.
Winter.
Well, because we already socialized with the people in the building, so like if we want to have like a little gathering, we'll just invite people over.
Right.
We'll just do things that way.
Make some spiced wine.
Yeah.
Because it might be nice to have like a slightly insulated tent that has ventilation in it, that also has like a heat lamp or something in it, so that you're not like super cold in there, but do something kind of like what 235th always does in the wintertime, where they have like tented areas, but then you have your like snuggie robes that you like don.
Yeah.
That's always been one of my favorite things. For the past, the last like 2 or 3 years we haven't done it, but prior to that, the last like 8 or 9 years, my best friend Jane and I have had a tradition of every New Year's Day. So not New Year's Eve, because New Year's Eve at 235th, which I did my very first year in New York City, was a complete and utter shit show. And it's something that you should absolutely experience, especially if you really like spending a whole lot of money to be packed in like sardines. But
I'm gonna pass on that one.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was a great experience. It's an experience.
Right.
But like New Year's Day, because everybody is usually hungover and like dead to the world.
Yeah.
New Year's Day at 235th is usually pretty empty.
Oh, wow.
And so you go up there, you get some hot cider.
I'm surprised they're even open.
Oh yeah, of course they're definitely open, because they're just trying to make that monies. But like you get like your Snuggie or don your fur coat, and like you get some hot cider, you get some hot toddies, and you're just like sitting on the roof under the heat lamps, just chilling, having some appies. It's real nice. It's such a chill, relaxing way to spend the day, especially if you're like hair of the dog in it. Like,
I mean, rooftops in New York are going to be such a commodity this winter. If COVID continues to be an issue and gets even worse, some people are saying it might. Any ability to have things outdoors. They say they're going to keep the outdoor dining on the street, but if you can go up to a rooftop, I think that's even nicer.
So
and honestly, I feel like we're sort of a bit of trendsetters at this day, like at this stage rather, because I feel like once we realize how easy it is to convert our roof to do it, I would actually really like to start like a coalition of people to like
convert other roofs. Yeah.
Especially lower income neighborhoods where you can put an actual garden on the roof. Well, there are gardens in Brooklyn that exist. There are massive gardens.
I think there's an initiative actually to have some sort of legislation to make every certain requirement that certain number of roofs need to be green in the city, and the city's going to create incentives to do it.
Yeah,
I would look into that, because you might even be able to take advantage of actual city funding.
What is it? Composting. Right. If you have a compost on your roof, your landlord gets a tax deduction.
Right.
Because I mentioned that to him.
Right.
And I have proof that we did do a compost.
I would look into the green roof situation, because there might be tax deductions for that too. Your landlord might be making out like like a bandit from this whole situation.
Which-
from the work that
100%.
you've done.
But not only just that though, like
But with
so the
that
city
rent.
puts. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like there's, I mean,
You should get at least like 2 months free for this. You put a
there's-
lot of work in.
But not only
saying.
just that though, the building is completely filled. Like
Mhm.
there's no empty apartments in there because
really
there's
unusual.
a roof deck.
Yeah.
But now that winter has rolled through though, so it's not that there is a sad end to this, but I did stop watering everything. I picked the pumpkins, I picked the tomatoes, I got all the green beans. Once everything was done, I was like, all right, I'm done. Like I need a break.
What did you
And,
do with all the vegetables?
I ate them. I gave them to other apartments.
We're gonna carve that pumpkin.
Yeah.
Gonna make some real cute jack-o'-lanterns.
I got some. I got a ritual that I do with pumpkins that I've used one of them for. I have the tomatoes, a lot of the tomatoes and basil, and chia. We grew a ton of chia, and I made chia tea. I don't know if you know, but like chia tea is actually super yummy. And so I made chia tea and grabbed like a bunch of like stuff that I harvested and put together a kit for the apartment up above us, because the guy up in there has been helping me water throughout the summer too.
Nice.
That's real nice to have someone else doing it besides you.
Like when I wake up around 11 and I'm just like, wait a second, what? Like I missed the whole morning. Everything's dead, and I go up and it's all watered already. And it's
Oh,
like,
that's amazing.
yeah. So
That's very
I
sweet.
made sure that he got some of the harvest. And it's
Nice.
just, like the watermelons I did, like I made watermelon mojitos,
Oh,
and
nice.
like anybody that came to the roof got like watermelon mojito.
that's real
amazing.
nice.
It's
How long have you been in this apartment?
a year this past June.
And how challenging has it been to kind of find the right roommates to live with?
It has been a challenge,
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
such a challenge in New York. That's
Well-
like such a quintessential New York.
and especially with COVID.
Oh
Yeah.
my god!
Everybody left. The second that COVID hit, like half my apartment left.
Wow.
Like the previous apartment, at least.
Yeah.
I had to refill it. But they were just like poof gone. We weren't even sure they were coming back. And then
Did they leave their stuff?
yeah, but you know what I mean. Like there was no communication. Like it was,
They just bounced out.
and these are the kinds of people that like they're not New Yorkers. You can literally tell that like these individuals, if they were to just leave everything behind, they'd be like, whatever, mommy and daddy would hook me up. Like,
Got you.
but not only just that, like
Were they on
they-
leases though? Like,
yeah, totally.
and were
But
they continuing to pay their rent?
and from what I know, sure. But at that point though, like they could just as easily when the lease is up, they could just stop paying rent and
Right.
just like, because they didn't sign the new one, just leave us to have to clean it out.
Right.
And that would have been on our shoulders. Regardless though, they didn't stick around. The moment that like,
Shit started hitting the fan.
yeah, then they were just like, oh, screw this, I'm out of here. And
Yep.
it's like, all right, well,
So what was that like trying to fill it?
it was honestly, it was a bit of a blast because first
Really?
and foremost, I had like 1 or 2 roommates at one point. Like out of an entire 5 people apartment, I had
Wow.
2
Yeah.
roommates.
That's real
Uh,
nice.
Would you have preferred to keep it that way for as long as possible?
Kinda. At one point, it was just me.
Well,
And
that's interesting. So from the landlord's perspective, if you're not really incentivized to fill it, like what does he do?
well, he incentivized me. He told me that he'd give me some cash if I found roommates.
Okay.
The other thing though, there was another. I don't want to say an offer that I couldn't refuse, but it was either I fill it or he fills it.
Right.
And if he fills it, he's going to contact a real estate broker. And if a broker fills it, a broker is going to fill all 5 rooms and
Right.
not just one.
Right.
So I have a chance to keep my lease. That's
Yeah.
really it. If I
That
want to find
makes sense.
roommates. And that's great. It was, I don't know. I was so grateful for the opportunity first off to be able to choose the people I was going to live with, because
It's always
previously
really
I didn't.
nice. Yeah.
And so it put me in a much better place. There were some roommates from hell though. I had one instance where somebody, now this individual worked for fashion. So there was some concerns that he could do this to other people. But he came on to me in this really weird way. He was completely drunk. I later found out he was on like Concerta, mixing it with booze. He was taking double doses. It was just
Woof.
not good. But he crawled into my bed with his sneakers still on, and with his ass in
with
the
his
air.
sneakers still on. I like that. That's like the worst part of this story.
No.
Like, first of all, that is like an abomination. You don't put your dirty New York ass shoes in my motherfucking bed. Like, oh, I'll
Vivica
fucking
knows.
cut you for that shit.
Continue.
Yeah. Vivica knows. It's one of those. You got your sneakers on, especially during COVID. You're tracking God knows what in. And this kid thought like. This kid kept his white sneakers on because I think that was one of his things. I can, after meeting somebody for like a good like 5 or 10 minutes, I can usually like pick out what sort of interests they have and certain proclivities.
Like a sneakerhead.
And this kid very much comes off like a sneakerhead, but like not in any butch way, but in like the most irritating way.
You can be a sneakerhead and like go get your clean sneakers that don't actually touch the streets and put those on.
Get them out of your velour bag
and
like.
Those I'm fine with. Like, if you got your like fancy $300 fucking like Air Jordans on that have never actually seen the streets and they're like your house slippers, all right, those can be in my bed. But like the moment they touch New York City streets, get those shits the fuck off my floor, get them off my bed. Why are they in my room?
We're talking about somebody jumping into your bed drunk and high.
No, but listen.
And
I'm getting
debating whether or not he should be wearing sneakers.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Now, I myself have on occasion left my Chucks and or my steel toe boots on while like wearing absolutely nothing else. So like I have done these things. Like the shorts are so easy to just remove. You don't have to like unlace shit. Just like take them the fuck off and get your stuff done. What was also attached to these sneakers was problematic. So like the whole thing was just an issue. And so when he crawled onto my bed and put his ass in the air and said, fuck me, in like the most desperate of ways, all I could say is, I don't know if you're joking, but this isn't funny. Get out of my room.
Right. He
turned this around and tried to make it seem like I went after him.
Oh, Lord.
He'd be so lucky. But like the end of the day, he started making it, like it spiraled. It snowballed into this thing that like he filed a false police report. And in fact, they knew he was so full of shit, they never filed it. They would have done me a favor if they actually filed it, because then I could take him to court. But because they never even filed it, like it's like
they were just like, wow, yeah, tell us more about the lies that you called us here to report. Wow, okay, cool.
They're like, we can't really do anything unless he touched you. And he's like, he did touch me. And they're like, he touched you? He's like, yeah, he touched my butt. Like he touched my ass. Like, yeah, that's what he says. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah. And that's what he tells the police. I got him out of the apartment. The landlord convinced him to move. There was a room downstairs available. Got him into a different apartment.
Someone else.
Yeah. Well, I honestly thought that after like what happened in my apartment, he would have like learned something, but he didn't.
Obviously not.
Yeah, but
do you think the police would have dealt with this differently if it were a male-female situation?
I'm not sure. I can never make those assumptions. I did say that in the moment, where I was like, if I was a female, this would be totally different.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the police officer looked me in the face and said, "Don't tell me how to do my job, sir." Wow. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'll never presume to tell you how to do your job. I'm just telling you that something needs to be done. Like, I'll never tell you how, but please do something.
Literally do anything. Like, it's not like I'm, as your taxpayer, I'm paying your fucking wages. Oh, no, right. That's right.
They played the principal. They never filed any paperwork for this visit. They told us if they have to come back, they're taking us both in. They can't do that.
Right.
But
basically threatening you as the victim.
Yeah. Threatening me as well, saying if we have to come back here, you're both being taken in.
Which is oddly what they tend to do with domestic violence situations in general, which is a good majority of the reason why a lot of women who are in domestic violence situations don't report it to the police, because it could end up making it worse for them across the board.
Yeah.
Because if the police came,
then they're both arrested.
Yep. And then they both get out at the same time, and now you get abused even more for having a police record.
But whether or not it's a male or female being abused, I'll be entirely honest, as like someone who was also the victim of like emotional, psychological warfare, like it's one of those things where like, I understand on some level it's hard for them to do their jobs in those instances because there is no there's no proof. If nobody can prove it, there's no proof. But if it's like a battery situation, it's like, it's very clear.
Yeah.
Like
one person has marks, the other person doesn't. You can kind of tell pretty quickly what's fucking going on.
This kid moved to another apartment and started telling other people in the building I tried to rape him. In fact, there was a girl that I wasn't dating. We were hooking up, but like she lived in that apartment, and he told her that I tried to rape him. Of course, he had no idea that like she and I were hooking up
at the time. Yeah,
he had no clue. He was just spewing from the fucking mouth at whoever would listen.
Right.
Goofballs. The thing is, he worked for Marie Claire, and I happen to know somebody who was on the board for that publication, and so. Anyway.
Oops.
It's good to make friends in New York City.
It's not about what you do; it's who you know.
It's really who you know in the city. Absolutely.
If anything, like I do everything, and like I am nobody, and I prefer it that way. Like I like the behind the curtain type stuff. It's so much easier. Crap. What am I doing?
So you said before that you were a kinkwear designer. So what got you into like designing kinkwear specifically? Like, were you like into the kinky field, or did you just feel like that would be more lucrative?
Yes. So the niche market is very lucrative. It's a very lucrative niche, but there's also there's quality behind it. There's also, if you were to make something that just doesn't exist somewhere out of like leather or rubber or whatever, then you just make this one thing, and other like photo houses or like fashion houses or wherever will just rent it. Mm-hmm. And I actually made money renting my products.
Renting in what capacity?
For photo shoots.
For photo shoots.
Yeah, like I made these leather face cages. I made like neoprene, like, you know, spikes and like all kinds of just like I showed my sketchbook to an actual like a really good designer, and he looked at me and he's like, this is what I would call what is it? Exploding garment, or the, you know, where like on paper it looks great, but like if you actually try to make it and put it on somebody, it'll just fall apart. Like it's not right. There's no physics involved with this. And I was like, no, you draw it and then you use physics to make it work. But he didn't get that. He didn't
put the two together.
No.
Yeah.
And so while he's sitting there poo-pooing my ideas, I'm so over sitting in the corner cobbling them together. And like I'm making money while he's like, I don't know, like it'll never buy, it'll never work. Yeah.
No one will ever, couldn't sell. And you're
like, oh, it has no hanger appeal. Like,
yeah, oddly it sold and people keep renting it from me. And so I'm making more money than you would have made because I know how to market it. It's so weird.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I had sketchbooks go missing at one point. Yeah. How about that? Anyways, but yeah, it was just, so to answer your question, I can't remember what it was.
Well, like besides like what got you into the kinky side of things?
What got me into it?
Yeah.
So I came to New York for the very first time, and I never experienced anything super kink at all.
Okay.
Did you have a reason for coming to New York?
Yes, actually, I had a friend who abandoned me. Abandoned me sounds so fucking dramatic. Wow.
I mean, you were what, 20? You know,
your baby.
I felt it. I felt it.
Yeah.
No, it was. I don't really talk to my parents because they were like they're doomsday prepping, like propaganda, like
Trumpers.
Snorting, like Fox News, like
oh Lord,
televangelist
in Massachusetts.
Oh yeah.
You're talking Western Mass?
Now my mom is racist and also half Puerto Rican, so I have no idea what the hell is up.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of internalized racism and self-hatred.
Yeah, yeah. So
what part of Massachusetts?
Salem.
Okay.
So it's whatever. The North Shore, North Shore. I tried so hard to get rid of my Boston accent that I sound like a Canadian sometimes.
Okay.
But
that's a rough accent.
Yeah,
Can you still do it?
Fucking when I'm drunk, I guess. I don't know.
You go back to your roots.
If you're lucky, I don't know. the Merrimack, the fucking I don't know. I need to know what to say to.
So you said your friend abandoned you.
Okay, so he Christmas Eve, he decided to say he feels sick. He's not going to go out. I'm sick. Boo, you whore. Decides like that was the moment then that he was going to go to like the Jingle Ball in Boston with another buddy instead and like try to scam on women. And now the reason why is I used to call him up for his toxic bullshit, and like the way that I picked up women was not the same way he picked up women.
Mm-hmm. You were actually respectful? Shocker.
Well, I saw him once prey upon his best friend's drunk girlfriend one time at a party. And Jesus. So it was done. But this guy was just fucking kaputs. You know what I mean? Like this was one of those things where I was just like, these are not reputable human beings. I don't want to associate with them. And they were the only reason why I was even hanging around in Massachusetts still.
Right.
Like fuck it, I want to go to New York. And so I went to New York. I drove my Buick down. I parked so I had the G1, like the original Google phone. Yeah. It was like the smartest thing I've ever held in my hands. And so I Googled, I don't know, fun stuff to do in New York or whatever. And like one of the first things to pop up was like this kink club in New York called Paddles.
So wait,
oh, Paddles!
You just drove to New York just because you weren't moving? Were you trying to move here?
No, I drove to New York with $200 in my pocket
just for like the weekend.
Because this is Christmas. I don't have a family. I didn't celebrate my birthday. I just wanted to fucking hang out and have fun.
Wow! So
I went for an adventure. I'm not kidding you. If I died, I would have been okay with it. Because I would have died having fun and being an adventurer.
And you weren't into the kink scene at this point.
I had no idea what the fuck it was.
And I was at a club called Paddles.
Yeah, and without like informed, like without the right kind of information or education, I would never say that I was actually 100% into anything whatsoever. I'd have to have the experience and knowledge to know behind it. So I was one of those people that I was like, I'm curious and at least openly curious about things. Mm-hmm. So Paddles popped up and it was a Sunday and I just fucking rolled in and it ended up being like the bondage club night.
Yeah.
And so now mind you, have you ever seen, I think it's Nightmare on Elm Street where like there's just like the junkyard with like all the cars all stacked. Mm-hmm. And so that's what one of these things, it was like a parking lot that we had to walk through. This was before that whole building on the corner was built. What is it? 26th and 8th. There was no building there. It used to be a big parking lot where like cars are just stacked. And so I had to walk through all these cars to try to find this entrance. And on this massive brick wall, there was just one door with like these plastic curtains, like the plastic, freezer curtains. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, just assuming this is it. If I wander into like death, I would be cool. I went down like stairs, a few flights. There's a mirror on one side, and then suddenly there's like a locked door and a little window. And so I knock on the window, it opens up, and he's like, $20. And I'm like, I don't know where I am. Verbatim. I don't know where I am. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just got here from Massachusetts. I really have no clue like what I'm doing.
And he's like, come inside.
I'm like, I just parked outside. He's like, oh, he's like, you're 21, right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, all right, cool. And he buzzed the door. He's like, come around. I go inside and they're like, here, just put your bag here. It was like the clothing's check. And there were two people that were there. They were just like, you never been here before? I'm like, no. They're like, you've been to New York? I'm like, this is my first time in New York. I literally just parked outside. They walked me around the whole place. They showed me racks. They showed me like all these areas where people are getting beaten. They're getting like...
Give the whole tour.
There's a pile of people fucking on the second floor up above like this in this loft that overlooks everybody. Mm-hmm. Somebody is being suspended. They're tied in ropes and they're being suspended from this wooden structure. Mm-hmm. There are tables and people are tied to them. There are chairs just like along the wall with like holes in the bottom of them. There's one chair with like the arms and then there's like the legs. So like with like eye hooks so you could just tie everything. Mm-hmm. And so it was just it was a feast for the eyes, and then they blindfolded me and stuck me into a bird cage. Like there was that big ass bird cage in there. I'm like, wow, this cage is sick. Like you put people in that? They're like, yeah, here. And they lift it up, they're like, get inside. I'm like, what do you mean? They blindfold me, they stick me in a ball gag, they strip me and tie me to this thing, and they hoist me to the ceiling. And then while I'm just up in there, hoisted, I can hear someone behind me getting electrocuted.
Yes. Not that I like electricity or anything, but like.
But you hear zap, zap.
What were you thinking at this point?
I was thinking, this is exactly what I came to New York for.
This was the adventure.
So it was a positive experience.
It was a story. It's an adventure. It's,
I mean,
you know, yeah,
the way you're
100%.
describing it, though, it sounds like it could be terrifying for some people, where it's like all of a sudden you're being, you know, tied up and blindfolded and ball gagged in a cage without your consent.
No, but it is with my consent. They didn't force me into anything.
So it wasn't weird. And
they asked me, would you like to go in the cage?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I could have very easily have said no if I showed any sign of discomfort. I was not coerced in any way. What they wanted to do was they wanted to facilitate a comfortable experience for me.
Got you.
In a space that could be intimidating, but they themselves, my tour guides, were warm and comfortable.
Right. So maybe just for people listening at home, I think what we're missing in this story is maybe the body language.
Okay.
That was going on, because it sounds to me like you were clearly interested and engaged and having a positive experience with them. Because the way you described it initially, it almost sounded like you were just kind of, I don't know,
like tied up and thrown into the corner. Yeah.
Right.
No, well, I'm glad that you made that point actually, because that's something that a lot of people actually miss about kink in general.
Coming at this from a vanilla perspective, I got Vivica over here cheering you on, and I'm like, wait, this sounds like you're literally
this is horrifying. What
right. So I'm trying to explain this in a way that maybe people who are not into the scene can understand.
Well, I guess regarding kink or sex in general, of course, consent is always number one,
Paramount.
most important. Yes. Absolutely. For so many reasons, I don't even need to get into it, but the idea of somebody being a dominant individual, therefore then entitled to take whatever they want, that is a predator, no matter how you color them, no matter how you write that shit out, no matter like whatever, no matter how attractive you think they are. If your consent is not considered, even if that is your kink, that is a predatory individual, and have your guard up.
But did you know any of this going into this?
I've always been a student of life, and very perceptive in terms of human behavior. I know whether or not I can trust somebody. Typically, not necessarily right off the bat, like, but if someone's going to put me in a threatening situation and they behave in a threatening manner, that stands out. Like the red flags go up, the hairs stand up on my neck, and I know how to get myself out of those situations.
Nice.
And it's important to, to ease it in, I guess is the best way to put it. You really don't need to intimidate people or yell at people. I mean, honestly, I've never met a very dominant person to ever raise their voice. I've never really known someone to expect someone to just submit without actually offering something for submission.
Yeah. So just for our listeners at home, Dorian Gray is an example of a predator, not a dominant.
100%.
50 Shades of Grey
is
like
Dorian Gray.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that a book?
Yeah. 50 Shades of Grey is an example of an abusive relationship.
No, but isn't Dorian Gray a book?
That's a portrait.
Portrait of Dorian Gray.
Portrait of Dorian Gray.
I'm so lost here because I don't
Christian
watch
Grey.
Christian Grey.
Yeah.
Christian Grey.
Like, what are you talking about? Already?
Yeah, no, Christian Grey. Yeah,
I was going to say Dorian Gray. Yeah, well, he was a predator, though. Dorian Gray he was an asshole, too.
He was an asshole, but I was talking about Christian Grey. You're right.
Got you.
From 50 Shades of Grey is the portrait of an abusive relationship, not an actual dom-sub relationship, because she couldn't give her informed consent about anything that he was having her sign away to, since she had no information about any of it and hadn't experienced any of it. So she can't say for sure, I like these things or I don't like these things, having never experienced it. So him forcing her to sign a contract where she's not allowed to say no to anything is a form of abuse.
So how damaging would you say that movie was to the kink scene and the understanding of what kink is and how kink can be misused or presented in a way that causes people who don't know enough about it to potentially misuse it when they're trying to figure out how to get involved in it, but they don't have the right guidance?
Well,
Please answer that question.
There are some stories currently circulating throughout Hollywood where there were women that were victimized, put into some suggestive situations, photographed, and where these photos were then used as blackmail later on. And because they signed contracts, including NDAs, they were never allowed to tell authorities that these photographs even existed, or that like they're being blackmailed. And these women were then coerced into some compromising positions where they had to do some not only just pretty illegal things, but like their entire reputations and lives have been entirely decimated.
Are we talking like Weinstein?
Things of that nature, but it's so much larger. It's so much. I mean, it's not just one guy.
NX, like Nixum or whatever, like the sex cult.
Nixium. What was that? Who was in that?
There was a lot of people involved.
Somebody
with
famous though, who is kind of like known as. Yeah, so that's interesting. So do you think that this is just kind of something that's part of Hollywood and part of an abuse structure of?
Well,
not just Hollywood.
Yeah,
so it's a part of the world, unfortunately.
Right.
The thing is,
fashion. It's huge in fashion with male photographers.
It's huge with humanity. Though the unfortunate part about it is that we color so many different things, so many different aspects of humanity, and then put them in a corner, put them in this space where it's like, oh no, look at that. Everything that you're seeing there only happens with that.
It's those people over there are different from them. We love to be able to try to categorize things in a way that we can think that it is not encompassed in our own potentiality.
Well, so to not call you out, but you said earlier as the vanilla fella. Right. Not those words, but you are. But as the vanilla fella in the room,
I'm playing a role in this podcast here. Right?
But
it's called role playing.
As a vanilla fella in the room, there's an aspect of claiming that, like, you know, so I'm vanilla, or when someone discusses things like polyamory, oh, I could never do that. Everybody does. Everybody has kinks. Everybody has like fetishes, proclivities, and it doesn't always go to the logical extreme where we're talking like leather bags over your face being beaten hanging from a ceiling. Like not everybody has that one, you know.
Is that your extreme?
there's so many extremes. I mean, that's actually not the extreme.
Yeah,
that's actually relatively tame.
Throwback to our kink episode, learning about sounding.
I've already forgotten what that is. Intentionally, and we're not going to remind me.
Cool.
Block that one out.
Yeah, I just squirmed in my chair a little bit.
Right. So we looked at a map of what the most popular kink search terms were by state, and there were a couple of states where it was sounding, and I was like, "What the hell is
Hampshire
sounding?"
Specifically,
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
So bored. This is so bored. They just start shoving stuff up their pee holes. Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
You were not going to tell me what that
was. Oops. But yeah, no, I think that to answer your question, that movie and that book were really damaging to the BDSM community in general, because that was looked at as a perfect example of BDSM, but actually that's a perfect example of an abusive situation. And so many women fawned over that book like, oh my God, I would love to have myself a Christian Grey. No, you don't want to be abused. What this book is describing is abuse across the board. And anytime I like hear snippets of that, and I had so many friends who are professional dominatrixes who loathed that book and hated every part of it because it made every part of BDSM looks so bad that people looked at us as, oh, you guys are all just abusers. But absolutely not.
But so that's interesting though, because you're describing people within the scene as recognizing the abuse, and maybe even other people's recognizing the abuse. But there was clearly a huge positive reaction from people who knew nothing about the scene to this book.
It opened them up to abuse.
What do you think was the positive attraction to this abusive behavior? Why are so many people aroused by that?
I think what it is it helped normalize certain types of kinks. Like everyone likes the idea of venturing into some unknown territory. Okay. So like getting tied up, that sounds really fun, or being blindfolded and not like having the thrill of not knowing what's coming next. There's something to be said about the fact that certain parts of the book were really fun in that scenario, but the overarching storyline of the way that Christian Grey treated
what's her face?
Yeah, exactly. Was just flat out abuse.
Dakota Johnson. I don't know her name in the book.
Yeah. So it's weird because there's
It
the
doesn't.
the positive response from the general public was a lot of bored housewives that wanted to try something new and spice up
It's a
their
trashy
bedroom.
romance novel.
Right, exactly. So it's like, oh, I would love to like maybe be spanked or tied up or not know what's coming next or have someone just like take advantage of me like this. And there is something to be said of having that really fun dynamic, and that can absolutely come with a really healthy dom sub dynamic. But the way that this was actually portrayed was just flat out abuse.
But what does this tell us about the risks involved in how we portray the kink community, and how people could potentially enter into the kink community and be excited about all these things, but have no ability to see what is so obvious to you guys as abusive?
There are no red flags.
Right.
I mean, if they're not exposed to it and taught that this is wrong, and in fact reinforced that this is expected, then there are no red flags when there's an actual dangerous situation presented. But
so
not
what do
only
we
just
do
that,
as advocates of the kink community, though, to help educate people on that?
to go back to your other question though, about like the positive things and why. First off, there's another series. The Marketplace series is a whole lot more ethical. Whole lot more ethical. Book series.
Okay.
If you are actually interested in the romance series that in like a fetish or kink based romance series, the Marketplace is 100% a whole lot more ethical than this. Furthermore, the number of women that I've personally hooked up with that not only were into being choked and having their hair pulled, but expected it without asking for it, worried me so much, because they thought that men that were kinky were just going to do it. And that's not the reality that any of us really want to live in.
Right.
Like, if men are going to behave like that, I actually had a conversation with my roommate just before I left the house today about this sort of thing, where like women that want the abuse will often go to men that they think will give it to them. It's the man's responsibility in that moment then to not be predatory about it, to not take it as an opportunity to then just take out their abuse on them, but to more give them the opportunity to explore that kink, to facilitate a safe environment for them where they feel like even though you're choking them or pulling their hair, that you're not going to kill them.
Yep.
And for some people, maybe the fear that you might actually kill them actually does something for them too. Like, that's great. But you got to have that be a conversation in the beginning, because that could ruin your whole career. And if nothing else, you could ruin her mind. You could ruin her to sex if you take too much from what she thinks she's going to be giving you. And coming from like, you know, the positive and negative aspect of having no, I guess, red flags programmed, because this is all a matter of programming. If you're a noob in all of these situations, it's essentially the blind leading the blind. Would you really want a blind person whacking the hell out of another blind person and just like calling that sex? Like, you need an adult in the room. You need someone who knows what the hell they're doing.
Always seek out someone who knows more about it than you do.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess my question is how do we
how do you know?
Well, how do we expose people to the kink community in a way where they can get access to the proper advice, rather than getting exposed to it through something like 50 Shades of Grey, where then they go home to their husbands who know nothing about it, and all of a sudden they start exploring, you know, some weird, unhealthy aspects of trying to, you know, recreate what they're seeing on the big screen.
Don't be afraid to talk about it.
Right.
The bigger problem that I find with so many different people is that they keep things in subtext. They don't want to talk about it so much.
Talk about it with who?
With anybody, with their romantic partner, especially specifically.
Okay. So even within the relationship.
Yeah, 100%. If there's an interest, don't like say, oh, like it would be great if you could do this, blah, blah, blah. Like, have it be a conversation. Like, how do you feel about doing this? Can we do this? Is that okay? Like,
are you comfortable with this thing? Yeah.
Because the other thing too is, if, for instance, if you want your man to smack you and he does not have an abusive like bone in his body, he doesn't want to hurt you, and in fact it would hurt him psychologically to do so, and you need that release, you need that excitement, you need that experience, don't fuck with his mind.
Yeah,
don't make him beat you. That's just that'll put him in such a weird space. Like, there are so many different, there are people called brats There's like it's a whole thing where like they say no, and then they're like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Like you're supposed to like want it. You're supposed to like try to like
force me into it.
Yeah, you're supposed to force me into it, and it's like that's not how any of this works.
Yeah,
and now because you're a brat, you don't get what you want.
Yeah, exactly. So like but you have to have knowledge of that dynamic before walking into it. If I'm gonna hook up with someone who's a brat, I want to know beforehand that they're a brat so that I can plan accordingly and know, okay, I'm going to say no, but no is not my safe word. I would rather establish a different safe word. If I say pineapple, please stop the scene. But if I say no, keep going.
Yeah. And one of the best or most common ones that I use is the traffic light. It's, green means go, obviously.
Yellow, maybe let's slow down, take a step.
Slow down a little bit, but red, full stop, and administer aftercare. Like they're not in a good place, like or it didn't go as they needed or wanted, and just like chill out, cool down, get her some fucking cocoa, and just hang out.
Talk to me about aftercare. What does that mean?
Well, aftercare is actually one of the more important parts of kink that not a lot of people even like pay as much attention about it. If
aftercare is so important. Yeah.
You get like some people get like the trembles and the shakes and stuff after especially their first experiences. So like it's almost like an out of body experience for some. And like when
tunnel vision happens.
Yeah. And if they don't feel like, so in these instances, like if you're tying somebody up for their first time, or if you're just tying somebody up in general, the endorphins, the adrenaline, all of that, they get oxytocin, they feel comfortable and loving towards their dom. You want to be able to coddle them as well. Like the first time that I was beaten, I was held while I was beaten. Like not that, but sexually. Sorry, I totally. The first time I was beaten sexually, I was held.
What does that mean exactly?
Somebody like I was in their arms. I was actually in a hood too, so I couldn't see or hear anything. Perfect. It's so brilliant. If I'll get into that in a second too. But like I was in someone's arms, they were holding on to me, they were hugging me and like holding me, and they were keeping my arms so that I couldn't fucking move, but they were like embracing me still.
So you're getting a hug, yeah.
And they were like petting my head and everything while like somebody was electrocuting my balls. And and that's one of those things where like you wouldn't think about it, but all up here is actually in an okay place. Like once you can establish what to do with your face, your arms, your body, like when you're out of there, you're out of your body. You don't have to worry about, I don't even know. For instance, things like hoods or chastity. If you can't stay hard, or if you don't know what to do with your face or what to look at, put a hood on your face. It takes all the attention off of you. You don't have to present anymore. You're no longer performing. You are now the subject. You are just an object. You're a toy, in a consensual way. In a consensual way. But in that way, though, you can be left in a more comfortable space. With something like a hood, you focus on your breathing. You're not seeing anything. You don't hear as much. I mean, you can still hear. There's sensory deprivation hoods as well, but no one's looking at your face, and that's the best part. Is you can just completely go somewhere else. And I have introduced people to kink through one particular fetish called puppy play. I don't know if you've heard about it, but some people take it to the logical extreme and they think like bestiality, and it's not that.
Nope.
And anybody who's going to think bestiality or zoophilia, they are not like, that's not what I'm talking about. And, and that is abuse as well. And that should be reported.
Bestiality.
Bestiality is illegal for a reason.
Yep. Accurate.
Anyway.
So what do you mean by puppy play?
What I mean by puppy play is somebody who can be relegated to a puppy mentality. Like the loyal, the protector, but still on some level really just wants pats. And they just really want to hang out and be naked and just like curl up in a ball and just like just get some pats, or like play tug of war or something. Like go fetch you something. Like go get me some water. Go clean the living room. You go clean the living room. She comes in, puts her feet up, and then you just sort of like you sit down on the floor, not on the couch. You sit on the floor.
Puppies don't
and you
get
just
on
like
the couch.
Sit there and you just wait for your next command. If not, then you just curl up by her feet. Or if you're allowed up on the couch, if she asks you to, you curl up next to her. You just act like a dog. And I know it sounds weird. Like, why would somebody do this? Now imagine though, when you don't know what to do as a sub, when you have no rules, you have no experience, you have nobody barking in your ear telling you what to do. you know what a dog does. You know how a dog behaves. You know a dog is subservient. Act like a dog.
It's so much easier.
It's so much easier. You have a frame of reference. Everybody knows how a dog behaves. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows also then how a proper dog handler or proper owner or proper master / whatever term you want to use treats their pets, treats their property. They take care.
So this is when you're trying to introduce somebody to the concept of being a sub.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can still coddle and take care of a submissive and still have them be submissive.
Does this kind of dominance and submissive play and interaction have to extend beyond just a sexual encounter? Can it be, kind of?
A lot of times, actually, when I do this stuff with male partners as well, it's not sexual. Especially when I do it with my male partners, they just need, for instance, in some cases, they have so much on their plate. They deal with so much. They are in control in some cases with multi-billion-dollar international corporations.
So that's a stereotype that's fairly accurate.
And
that it's men or people in
high-stress situations
who need to be.
They have all of this here, and they just need to put it in a briefcase and hand you that briefcase for a little bit. And that's cool.
In charge.
And just hand you that briefcase. You hold on to that briefcase, and you ask them, so what do you want to do today? You can decide whether or not...
You want to go for a walk?
Yeah. You get to decide whether or not you fucking do anything that they want to do, whether or not they're a good boy or girl. But you get to treat them like a fucking pet. They do exactly what you tell them to do. Mm-hmm. And then when they're done, you give them a treat, or you use them however however it is that you guys have your play. But in some cases, the use and or abuse is the treat, if that's really what they like or want. And then you just, it's the aftercare. The aftercare, you still the puppy play rolls back into that, where you can still pet them and give them food and water. Yeah. The number of times that I just
oh, they're such a good boy. They get a good steak today.
Yeah. I'll make them breakfast and just put it on the table. And then
maybe this is a weird question, but a lot of what we're talking about almost sounds like some of this stuff is kind of therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's something that people are seeking out in order to deal with stress, trauma situations,
it's a coping mechanism. And so much more than sex on a psychological level.
Right.
It really does help.
That people might be searching this out in lieu of therapy or traditional therapy.
I want to say it's a form of therapy.
Right.
There's catharsis that you certainly do feel. Mm-hmm. But I would never recommend in place of.
Yeah.
Okay. But in addition to something like a cognitive behavioral therapy, it'd be a wonderful match.
Whole different type of CBT.
CBT and CBT. Wow.
Has any of this been studied and done in a clinical setting?
Kink specifically, or
I mean, all the stuff that we're talking about, how people are seeking this out sort of for therapeutic reasons. It sounds to me like it could be something that could be studied and licensed and taught.
Has been at least BDSM.
Yeah. Because what I'm wondering is when you're seeking this out with people who aren't necessarily, you don't know what their background is. Mm-hmm. You don't know that they're the right person for this. You don't know if they've studied it. You don't know if they've
is there any certification for being a professional?
Yeah. And when somebody's seeking it out and they don't necessarily have the experience with it, and they're not able to, as we see with the attraction to the not Dorian Gray but Christian Grey, and the 50 Shades of Grey books, that people who are seeking this out for the first time may not have the ability to recognize how to avoid somebody who could be predatory, avoid somebody who could be detrimental to them. So I guess what I'm asking is how do you navigate that?
You just, unfortunately, it is a process. You would never, because you are actually quite literally putting your life in someone's hands.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't just meet someone for a Grindr or a Tinder date. I mean, it happens.
You can, but
it happens. But that's also the reason why the Me Too movement sort of missed the gay community altogether, and rape and or abuse is completely rampant in that community.
Right.
And that's not me trying to gay hate or anything like that. But I mean, there's it's part of the culture. It's called cruising. The lack of consent is actually a part of it.
Do you think that there will be a movement around that at some point?
And I feel bad saying this, but it is actually a part of the culture, so much so that I don't see it happening. Maybe eventually, but there are very predatory individuals amok at this point. And when women feel empowered to call men out, and then the men get their comeuppance, then that is the changing tide. Then you see a change in behavior. You start to see a lot more mindful approaches. And then you also see the adverse effects in the men that are actually predatory. You can see them a whole lot more clearer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think though that part of that has to do with the fact that society sees men as predatory and women as potential victims, and that narrative makes sense to everyday people when they hear that women are being abused and men are the abusers, and they can buy into it? Whereas when it's two men, they think, well, why don't you just defend yourself and be a man and deal with it?
I find those gender politics to be complete bullshit, though. Unfortunately,
whether they're bullshit or not,
I call them out.
They exist?
I call them out every time that
do they exist? Not whether you agree with them.
No,
you don't think they exist.
I don't think that exists. I think.
So why is it then that
predatory behavior exists across the board in every aspect of human behavior, because there's always someone who's going to think that they're going to get more than somebody else.
I get that, and we're in agreement on that.
Yeah.
It's not a question of whether this exists or not. It's a question of societal perceptions.
The societal perception around something like men versus women being more predatory,
or being something that they can understand when somebody is claiming it, versus when it's happening in a male on male or a female on male where the male is the victim. It's not something that general people in society have a frame of reference to understand.
Male fragility we're talking about. Essentially the fact that men can't be seen as victims.
Right.
And so because of that, men are less likely to not only just report being victimized, but being taken seriously when a victim. And not only just that, when they are actually seen as a victim, then after that, he also then has to live with the fact that he's been victimized. And there's a form of PTSD that comes along with that as well.
Right. So another example of where I've seen this kind of abuse play out in the same way, where it's in the modeling world, where when female models or female actresses have been abused and have spoken out about it, they are embraced by society and supported. There has been, as far as I know, zero. Well, that's not true. I guess Kevin Spacey was somebody who was taken down by
but that wasn't a model. That's
by boys. Yeah. Well, in that case, then you have underage is part of it.
Yeah.
But when it's people,
if he wasn't underage, it would not have been an issue.
The number of male models that I know who have been assaulted by photographers, it's very high, and I don't know of any situations where that's been taken seriously enough and actually dealt with.
And there was a situation with Terry Crews where Terry Crews is one of the most quintessentially manly men that you're gonna
That's right,
see.
Terry Crews. You're right.
He came out saying he had someone touch him inappropriately, and he had someone.
And what's the response been?
The response was it
was Terry Crews, so he got his justice,
right?
But from what I heard, though, he also
his
has
masculinity,
been complaining.
His masculinity was questioned, and well, you're this big bad masculine man. Why didn't you fight back?
Right.
Yeah.
And his response was, what the actual fuck? If I had started assaulting this man, there's still the politics of a black man,
this angry black
turning
man
around and beating the shit out of a white dude. So there's already that dynamic, but then
he would have been called homophobic too.
Of course. So him defending himself was not actually viable of a tactic for him, but there's a lot of people who were on the defense well, you're Terry Crews. You could have absolutely thrown your muscles around and well, he just touched your ass. Is it really that big of a deal? And yes, absolutely it is. But why is his masculinity being questioned in the first place when he's just saying, I have been a victim of sexual assault? What the actual fuck? This is not okay.
And the reason why is because men do actually take part in a game called grab ass. Is that men do this stuff to each other, whether gay or straight, that this is a part of the unfortunate human culture that behind closed doors, men will still behave in a certain way with each other. And that's, in some cases, completely acceptable, completely fine, because we know that if we don't want something to happen, nothing's going to happen. And the worst part about it is there's an entire community of people who, I don't want to say are falling victim, because they're not victim. Nobody that I've heard of has fucking complained about it. It's been a hallmark. And so
in the
gay community,
right.
This is going to come off as homophobic. And so I'm really hoping to not be.
Why?
Because.
Do you think it's homophobic?
I don't think it is. I don't think. I think more often than not, if I say this to a gay man, he actually owns it. He says, like, not he himself, but that it is very common.
So who are you afraid of calling this homophobic?
There are hypersensitive individuals that can spin anything that you say.
Do they matter? Do you care?
What I care about is someone screwing with my name or my reputation personally. I think that's more the other aspect of it is like, unless, so this is on film, like this is, but if someone has an anecdotal story saying like, oh, he did this, he said this, he is this, there's no proof. You can't
Right.
defend yourself against it.
Right.
And so, and in some instances, not directly, but hypothetically speaking, if someone were to say, like my old neighbor, saying, hey, this guy tried to rape me. It seems innocuous. It sounds like whatever, like you just ignore it, it'll go away. He's just like, weaving a web and just trying to. But what if he says that to the wrong person?
Yeah.
What if the wrong thing comes out and like someone takes something out of context and you say it just to the wrong person? It goes down the telephone line, like, that game Telephone. The message gets screwed up so much. By the time the fifth or sixth person gets this message, they think that you are a neo-Nazi and you can't defend yourself against them because you're not even in the room.
And you didn't even hear the beginning of the story.
And next thing you know, you have death threats. You have people not inviting you to shit. You have like a loss of a social network because one person took one thing out of context and made it a huge deal when all they had to do was ask you.
This is why this new community of long form discussion is so important, because we see so much of this in the media where people decide that somebody is, their enemy or working against them, or they don't agree with their politics, or they don't agree with, their ideas about life. And they immediately start taking things out of context and building up this story of who they are. And when you live in a world of headlines and 5-second sound bites, it's easy to do that and to build up these two competing worlds where everybody's kind of at odds with each other and nobody's actually hearing each other. And it's been wonderful to see how the podcasting form has enabled people to break through that and to have conversations that have this depth and have this nuance and have the ability to understand people on a more human level and understand that no, this person isn't just a neo-Nazi or isn't just this or whatever people are making them out to be, but that they actually have studied something or they have a more nuanced understanding of something that it's just been completely lost because we attempt to create these stories of people that fit our narrative. So yeah,
the narrative.
I think that the only way to really push back against that is to have real conversations and have them in a public way like this.
Yeah, and to stay calm. I can't stress enough how breathing is important right now, especially with COVID. I'm in the process of starting I'm developing a product and an accompanying app called the Calm Companion to try to help people stay more on top of when they have a heightened sense of anxiety, where because especially with COVID, people are getting worked up over small things lately, and they blow things up because their worlds, which are usually like
very
as large as the city,
Yeah.
is now the size of an apartment, and these big problems can become so huge.
And also, media and social media especially is feeding us the problems of the entire country. So it used to be that
swirling around your apartment.
When you hear a problem in your local community, it was very real and you had to deal with it. But now we hear the biggest problems,
and you can't do anything about it.
And you feel very
and you can't do
helpless.
anything exactly.
Yeah.
And they're just constantly being fed to us.
And then everybody's just in these cages, and now you're seeing heightened domestic violence. You're seeing like a lot of mental health issues. Everybody in New York right now has PTSD. Since 9/11, you probably have not seen as much PTSD per capita in New York City.
Right.
Like back then, you'd hear a garbage truck go down the block, and like they'd go over a pothole, and you'd hear bang, and just that alone, people would wake up in the middle of the night. They'd wake up in a cold sweat. They'd have no idea what the hell was up. Nightmares, anything like that. During the day, any truck. Anything. And these loud noises happen literally everywhere in New York. But any loud noise literally anywhere in this city would set somebody off, make them think, should I run? And with this now, it's so much more ominous because it's invisible, because everybody is a potential threat, and you're dealing with a massive scale PTSD, and nobody knows how to sense, first off, that they're triggered, and like that they might be able to be set off so easily.
Right.
But
because they're not used to it.
No, not at all. But nobody is also explaining to them that this is normal. Yeah. Because anybody is just walking around feeling crazy. And that's not going to be helpful. If honestly, if I was already depressed, I was already scared, and on top of it, then I'm calling myself crazy, it's not going to help.
Right.
So all we can do is you got to normalize the behavior, make sure everybody knows like this is PTSD, but everybody has it. This is normal.
Right.
And like you got to just navigate it as easily as possible.
Wow.
I would like to return to just one little thing. So you mentioned earlier how you asked how someone coming new into the community might find someone.
The kink community.
Yeah, the kink community specifically might find someone who isn't going to be abusive or who understands red flags. And I think it's worth looking into someone who is trauma informed, especially if you're trying to be subservient, having a trauma informed dom.
What does it mean to look into something specifically though? Like, do you Google it? Do you look on Craigslist?
So like if you're talking to someone like
looking for a trauma informed dom, like
yeah. So like if you're talking to someone like on Tinder or on Grindr or something like that, and they're are saying, well, I'm a dom. Okay, well, are you a trauma-informed dom? Explain to me, like, what has informed your trauma experience that you would be sensitive to my traumas going into this? That's a pretty easy ask because any trauma-informed dom can be like, okay, well, I have experience with XYZ. I've also had to deal with people who have had other traumatic experiences, and I've worked with them through those experiences. And if you aren't a trauma-informed individual, you're not going to know how to answer that question. And you're going to just kind of like, oh, well, you know, like trauma isn't really that serious. And like, you're going to downplay it and you're going to dismiss it in a way that is immediately in and of itself a red flag.
Yeah.
So it's not that you have to like Google search this particular thing. It's just when you're dealing with a new partner, they should have some sort of trauma experience because in all reality, every person has had to deal with trauma in their lives. So
whether or not they could recognize it.
Right. So being able to recognize it and understand how they've dealt with their own traumas in the background and how they've worked through their own traumas to get to the point where they are now. So they're not just taking their abuse out on you to try and like help heal their traumas. They're actually removing their trauma from your play and helping you work through your own, either via the play or via the aftercare, or just helping you find the right therapist, knowing that, okay, I am not going to be your only source of healing is a really great way to make sure that you're not playing with someone who's an abuser, because an abuser will dismiss and diminish any and all traumas.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could do maybe an episode or maybe to talk to somebody, you know, in the community who has more experience with this, but like how to recognize red flags as a noob, you know, if you're getting into it, if you're playing with some new people, or maybe you're playing with somebody you've been with for a long time and you're getting into more kinky stuff, like
alcohol. The very first time that you ever play with anybody and they suggest that you guys get really drunk or really fucked up on anything, don't do it. The very first time that you play with anybody, you should be sober.
Wow.
We're pretty close to it. Yeah.
Let's do this right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's do it. Right, no, not that. Let's do this segment on like, you know, what to look out for as somebody new to the community and shouldn't getting into it.
Nick is like, we'll get into the kinks right now.
I brought my bag.
Ironically, I did bring my electricity today, and that was just.
We are so over time. We're gonna have to do a follow-up episode for sure. And maybe we'll get into that more specifically because I think that would be really interesting. And I'd love to be able to put that out as like a short segment of like what to look for as a noob in the kink scene and how to be able to look out for yourself and advocate for yourself. I think that'd be really cool to be able to put that out.
There were a couple of things I wanted to mention too this time around, like the short story I'm writing and Nosferatu. It's a modern COVID adaptation, and the website BareHands.nyc. It's the handyman company. Yeah, the handyman company that I put together.
And that's still running? You're still doing it?
Yeah, that's still up. That's still doing it.
So if somebody wants to hire you to show up.
Come in full respirator. Yeah.
And nothing else.
Oh, not, I mean, there's a whole process. So
you don't just show up naked.
No. So, all right, not to derail entirely, but this actually does go along with things like consent, etc. The whole conversation always happens beforehand. And if they're going to ask if I'm going to do sex work, they always ask me beforehand too. They're going to be like, oh, do you do anything extra? And then you have to say no, because the shit's illegal. And so at the end of the day,
is it like a no, or is it
no? I personally, it's a hard no, but like I also understand why they're asking, so I'm not judging. Like right. I tell them like, I understand why you're asking that. No, this is skilled trade. Like I'm actually going to provide an actual skilled trade for you.
Like I do actually want to fix your sink.
Yeah, like I actually really do enjoy working with electricity and plumbing. So like, just let me just fix your drywall and fucking call it a day.
What do you do if you show up and their sink doesn't actually need fixing?
You
charge them and leave?
No, well here's the thing. It's and not to like start boasting about this whole thing, but it's a 2-hour minimum.
Nice. Okay.
It's and sometimes if it's like just building IKEA furniture, I get that stuff done in like a half hour, right. And then just have an hour and a half. You just hang out, hang out and talk.
That's
and honestly, believe it or not, what I find, especially in these situations, male or female, depending, regardless of age or sexual orientation, I've actually worked with straight and gay individuals. It's a matter of feeling comfortable with nudity or feeling comfortable in a nude setting. So it's not only just a matter of like sexual stuff. It's like some people just don't feel comfortable in their own bodies. Some people don't feel comfortable around naked people. Some people don't know what to do in the room with an attractive individual or a person that they find attractive that happens to be naked. Sometimes people ask, hey, is it cool if I like jerk off in the corner? I'm not focusing on that. I'm fixing your sink. Like
wow. What you do in the corner is your own damn business.
Yeah. Like there are some people that aren't even home while I'm doing this stuff. I've actually had some clients that like left me their keys and I go back and I renovate their whole like apartment for a week. Wow. I'm not even kidding. No cameras because I would know because I'm renovating their apartment, but they just leave me their keys and they just, and I send like photos of like the work as I go. I make sure that I stay 100% like on top of everything, the like all expenses and everything. I explain why everything is what it is. And especially while I'm doing electricity, some people are so fascinated with it that they're completely pulled out of the nude aspect of it. The nudity is just, to be honest, it's a calming device. Wow. I'm a stranger coming into their home. Once they realize they don't have to entertain me, I'm doing work. Then they realize there's just a naked person taking care of something and they don't have to worry about it.
It's beautiful.
But it's a whole business though. It's not like when they ask me to clean, I don't clean. I don't do windows. I don't do dishes. I don't like, that's not.
Yeah, you're not their maid.
And I'm not, how do I put this? I'm not diminishing that work as well. Like it's important stuff to do.
That's just not what you were hired for.
Yeah, but I provide an actual skilled trade. Like I actually I'll refinish someone's floors and stuff, Or I've gone for instance, I've gone to Fire Island and I was like a private chef, or like I'll somebody needs a massage therapist, and not that I do that nude because that is also illegal in New York, but.
Wait, it's illegal to do massage therapy nude?
It is illegal, yeah.
But not handiwork.
Yeah, handyman work is not.
It's not specified in that bill.
It's not like, especially if it's just like whatever consensual, like it's not sex work. There's no
right.
There's no sex exchange.
But as soon as you're touching people, you can't
touching
be nude.
Somebody else's body,
I'm not, and that's the thing. It's like there's no contact. There's no anything of that nature. I call it service with a show. I got. There were a couple clients, they needed more electrical outlets, more junction boxes in their kitchen. They couldn't run their AC and their microwave at the same time. So I'd go in, I'd just pop some boxes in there, run the wire or the cable rather, and just bing, bang, boom.
So how can people find you if they want to hire you for this?
BareHands.nyc.
BareHands, BARE.
Yeah.
Hands.nyc. Yeah. That's amazing. Do you subcontract out any of this work?
I do.
You have people that you hire as well?
I have a handful. Of fellas that are not only willing but fully capable and I started the company with a buddy of mine, Jake, and we, yeah.
So that sounds like good work opportunities for COVID right now for young gentlemen in this city.
It is. Honestly,
is this like a hiring opportunity for you? You're also looking to expand.
Trying to get hired, John?
I'm always.
I mean, you never know.
I'm always looking for more hands. You know what I mean? Because you can never have enough hands.
Especially bare ones.
Bare ones, you know, and especially like skilled trade. Like it's one of those things that like if the pay is so much better.
Right. Yeah.
And so like. For instance, the reason why I started this, and I know like it sounds super trashy, but like, I mean, judging it aside, I was actually putting myself through school, and it was a lot of work. There's a lot of work involved with this whole school thing. And I didn't have enough time because I was full time. I didn't have enough time like to work as well and do all the extra work that was required of me as well as practice. And so, I started this company to put together IKEA furniture naked. I love it. I posted on Craigslist, but then Fosta Sesta happened, and so like it became word of mouth. Actually, a lot of my.
How did Fosta Sesta affect you specifically?
Overnight, all of my clients, boom, gone.
What do you mean? Like they stopped hiring you?
No, there's no way to find me.
Yeah, because it disappears.
Where were you were advertising on Craigslist, and then you couldn't advertise on Craigslist anymore, so therefore you lost your potential clients.
Yeah, the whole business actually became word of mouth only.
Okay.
At that point.
So you managed to build the business.
Yeah, and
through word of mouth.
Because it's such a because I take care of my clients. I have a lot of return clients.
Gotcha.
And then they recommend to other people too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
It's so important too. My favorite part, you always leave a place better than you found it. It's what I left my roommate before I left the house. I left him with that because he had some questions about kink and consent and ethics and stuff, and I had to remind him you should always leave something better than you found it. Leave a place, leave a person better than you found it, and that's how I tend to operate with this whole thing. Is like as long as you're showing up, there's a service that needs to be done. Like I can imagine that this individual would have no other way of actually being able to take care of this themselves. So you're sort of almost saving the day too.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have temperature requirements? I know that's a weird question, but I feel like that's the one thing I'd be concerned about working in the nude is being cold.
Being cold?
And not being able to put on a sweater.
Well, believe it or not, if the client is sadistic, then they might, if they wanted to keep things cold, then they're not looking at your junk. And
I'm not worried from that capacity. I just don't like being cold.
Oh no, and that's fine. That's totally fine. I would
be worried about the same thing.
That's totally fine. For instance, I've worked in someone's backyard before. I've worked
leg
in
warmers.
Yeah. To me, I have a higher threshold for these sort of things.
You're like the naked cowboy. You're out there in Times Square.
I'm not
40-degree weather.
Because I'm more focused on the work. But I understand though that sometimes it's a comfort thing. If I do like work with the clients. In that regard, if it gets a little rough, you could talk to the client. You could be like, it's a little cold.
I feel like I would put that in my contract. I'd be like, only getting naked at 70 degrees or warmer.
I mean, we'll be completely honest. As long as the job's getting done, the client will let you put clothes back on. If it's too cold,
right,
the client will still let you put like underwear or something back on. They'll still like let you like
even thermal.
Yeah, like the client will still hook you up. Like they're not going to be assholes.
Shirt cock it with just a thermal, keep it warm.
Like I get like a lot of the times the work that I set up, because it tends to get to the point where like then I just start facilitating the work and actually getting and vetting the clients. I make sure that it's a comfortable, safe situation for everybody involved.
It's good.
So if there's any boys listening to this in New York City, they can go to BareHands.nyc and potentially get some good side work. I
mean, the thing is, and it's not sex work. I mean, there's no sex involved, but it is sexual. I understand that. Right. I understand the titillation involved. I mean, strippers or exotic dancers is still in some way considered sex work.
It is.
And so I respect that. And I feel like in New York, there aren't very many opportunities for men to participate in the sex work environment or the sex work community without having to subject themselves to some potentially dangerous and or harmful situations. And I kind of want to put an end to that. I would like to at least be one of the hands involved to help facilitate like the newer generation of male exploration in that sense. I feel like there's a part of the male psyche that is not explored, that is not allowed to go to a certain place. And male vulnerability, like being sexual, being naked, being nude, a guy being nude. Guys are not allowed to do that because it's a vulnerable space even. Like, I mean, sure, it's predatory as shit. Like some people take it to that place, but even just like, it's emasculating.
Well, it's almost considered predatory when a man does go nude in public. He's the one being a predator, considered by society. Whereas when a woman goes nude in public, it's like, oh, she's exposing herself and everybody wants to look at her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's a gender politics.
Right. Men are just kind of taught by society that their bodies are not
that welcome, they should be ashamed of all that.
They're not welcome.
Yeah. But, and then the adverse, women are then trained to
use their bodies.
To say that, to send that message.
Right.
To be like, ew, that's a penis, like regardless of whether or not they want to see it. You know what I mean? Like they don't feel sexual enough. They don't feel welcome or safe enough even to be like, nice, now put it away. You know, like it's got to be this whole like, oh my God, like what are, like, and because of that, then like, you know, these, like, what are you going to do? There's no way to really navigate that then.
Right. So with everything you've learned and all the different hats that you've worn in New York City and all the different, you know, communities and pursuits that you've explored, if you had to look forward over the next 10 years, what would you be most excited about having accomplished in your life, or having developed further? Which avenues that you're currently in?
There are so many irons in the fire right now that like I'm sort of counting on like a number of them working out. Like,
I don't necessarily mean something specific in terms of like work. I mean just in general of like, you know, you talk about wanting to create a better environment for men to be able to explore.
Creating community.
Yeah.
Creating a safe space. Actually, holding safe spaces for people and facilitating safe exploration is a huge goal of mine.
And it sounds like that plays out in a lot of the work that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, across the board, if it's one thing that I know how to do, it's how to create and facilitate a safe, comfortable environment.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So we finally got to it. I mean, 2 hours in, we started this interview at the beginning. We were like, so who are you?
What do you do?
Who are you? And maybe we've touched on just a bit of it. Just a bit of it. We've exposed just a little bit of who you are, and hopefully we're going to get you back in here again soon to continue that exploration, because it sounds like we still have a lot more to learn about.
I'm a Skittle. The exterior is like hard and chunky, but inside it's all chewy and gooey and squishy.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
Yeah.
Isn't that sweet? Well, Nick Stryker, ladies and gentlemen, it has been such a pleasure to have you in here in our studio, our first in-studio guest.
Yay!
I hope that all of our audio and video ends up working out as well as we're hoping. And yeah, we're going to have to do this again soon, because I feel like we're just beginning to peel back the layers, and there's so much more that you're working on that I'm excited to hear more about. You have your short story, is it? Nosferatu? Mm-hmm. We're going to have to talk about that in more depth next time. What's your timeline for completing that? Any ideas?
Wow. Well,
when do we get to read it?
You could read it tonight. If I could send it to you tonight if you want, but it's the drafting process is becoming, I'm trying to figure out like what sort of audience I want to read. But also, I've been playing with the idea of potentially making it a screenplay as well at some point. So
love that.
I'm working with adapting and all of that too. So before I release one, I want to make sure that it can be another as well.
You can switch it over pretty easily.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But you know, it's a process, and it's just one of the few, but it's good. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So where can people find you online in addition to Bare Hands?
So Nick Stryker on Instagram.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's probably the better place.
Awesome. IG. I love it.
Always. Well, Nick, has been fantastic talking to you as usual.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And hopefully, like I said, we're going to get you back in here very soon.
We're going to have a fun time party on your roof, I think.
Oh, that'd be
now that everybody
marvelous.
listening to this is just as excited as we are to explore your roof.
It's
Everyone's
a really great
invited.
roof. As someone who has been there and spent a lot more time than I expected to spend there, it's a really great
Maybe
roof.
when we hit our first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, we'll throw that party on your rooftop.
We'll celebrate. Or when certain people in the administration kick the bucket.
Oh Lord, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I don't want to get too excited right now.
Yeah.
I can't handle.
I've got
No
champagne
jinxing
on
it.
ice.
No jinxing it. No jinxing it.
now. Oh my goodness.
You gotta have
You know, he
something to
released a
look forward
coin.
to.
He released a coin saying that he beat it, right?
Yep.
That he's not done with it yet, right?
I know.
Okay,
It's
cool.
so good.
I just want to make sure we're
I
on the same
know.
page.
I want to get that coin for when he dies.
Yeah, me too.
It's his mission accomplished. It's his mission accomplished moment. Remember George Bush in the Iraq War? He went in on an aircraft
little
carrier.
banner.
Yeah.
Mission
And
accomplished.
Literally like a year into that war, and we're
COVID
still there.
defeated.
Are we still in Iraq?
Yep.
I mean,
We're
I
definitely.
just
we're
read an
still in
article. These military people are sending their kids now.
Yep.
Like they fought in the Iraq War and the Afghanistan war, and now they're sending their kids to the same war.
It's a legacy war.
I
Yep.
mean,
It's almost like we're in Afghanistan for the poppy seeds.
oh, are we selling heroin? Is that part of our national GDP at this point?
Well,
I think we're getting way out of topic here.
I mean,
Let's wrap this up. Nick Stryker, thank you again. It's been such a pleasure
been a
for
pleasure.
Vivica and I.
Absolutely. We hope you have a great rest of your day. And for everyone listening, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Check us out at funtimeprogram.com. You can also subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And, check us out on Twitter. We say some fun things sometimes. And, we're on IG as well.
But definitely YouTube, guys. Like we're having so much fun on YouTube.
YouTube is really great.
The video form of this podcast, for me, just takes us to a different level. You get to see people. You get to see what we're talking about. We show photos during the episodes. We show other video clips and whatever it is that we're talking about. You can see it on the screen. Check us out on YouTube. Throw us a subscribe. Leave us a comment. Leave us a review wherever you listen to these podcasts. And we
Give
will
us
see
a like
you.
even.
See you guys here in the next one. Thanks
Have
again,
a great
Nick.
one.
thank you.
Peace.
Thanks for checking out this clip from our show.
To watch more clips or full episodes, click on our profile below.
If you want to stay up to date on all of our new episodes and videos, click subscribe.
And if you have any ideas for future guests or topics that you would like to see us cover on the show,
leave us a message in the comments or connect with us on any of our social media channels at Funtime Program.
or on our website at funtimeprogram.com.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.